Now, I know from my personal experience that going straight into dealing with these harder to feel emotions, harder to deal with thoughts, can be like, I barely survived getting through it last time. You asked me to go back into hell and work through it. So, well, not necessarily. I wouldn't say go back in there and just see how it goes. It's more like, can you start to train yourself in being more equipped on how to deal with those situations? One of the examples I use often is if you've been in a situation, a violent situation, and you've barely made it out alive, then rather than go through your whole life trying to avoid potential threats in your environment and people that you suspect as not being good people, because that's a really limited life, is to, start to learn some kind of self-defense, a martial art, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, judo. It doesn't matter what it is. At least you have something to give you a reference point for which your mind can draw from if you're ever in a situation that appears to be similar to the one you've just been through. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at the same threat level. Okay, maybe it's just about being able to stand up for yourself and speak your mind, think how you want to think, move through life how you want to move through. Because if someone decides to escalate it to a level of, say, violence, that you're not totally unfamiliar with that situation because you've put yourself in environments where you have been able to train and practice getting familiar with those uncomfortable emotions, getting familiar with being out of your comfort zone, right? And this doesn't just apply to things like, violence and martial arts. It could be with your finances. It could be, if you've been bad at finances or you haven't had much money, like, can you put yourself around people that for them it's a normal thing to be affluent? Or if relationships is not your thing or hasn't been your thing, can you put yourself through courses where you learn more about relationships to get yourself the map and maybe some techniques on how to deal with problems that you had in the past better than you did before?